Okay. Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to A Navigators. Today we have Anthony from Data Dive that will give us some insight on challenges of Amazon data flow optimization, all this stuff. But before we jump in, maybe you can give us your background, how you like your journey, how you came to be part of the deep dive.
Yeah, so first off, thanks for having me on the show. My name's Anthony Cofrancesco. I've been in the e-com industry since about 2017. I actually worked for Amazon back in the day before I started doing a full-time. I don't know if we lost you. Are we all good? Is it still showing me? Are we?
Yeah.
Okay,
Everything is fine.
okay. So I'm sorry, I just got stopped there. So what's up, everyone? I'm Anthony Cofrancesco. I've been in the e-com industry since 2017. I started my career officially working for Amazon, and before I started a full-time job, a friend of mine from college, this was back before there was any courses teaching how to sell on Amazon, taught me how to sell on Amazon. I launched my first product, went to work for Amazon. I was working in loss prevention, so in the fulfillment center, in the FC operations side. I got to investigate vendor theft, employees that were stealing items from the fulfillment center, like security plans for the building, physical security, all sorts of crazy stuff. And so I worked at Amazon for about a year. And then that same guy who had taught me how to sell and helped me launch my first product, he called me up one day while I was working at Amazon and he said, "Hey, I've got this agency, a creative agency down in the Philippines in Manila. Why don't you quit your job at Amazon, move to the Philippines and help me scale this creative agency?" And the creative agency was called Virtuous Graphics. So I liked my job at Amazon, but I didn't like not having the freedom. I didn't like not being able to go where I wanted in the world and having to be back into the office every single week. It was crazy because I'd already dropped out of college. So I had a good job. My parents were proud of me, but I knew if I stayed at Amazon, I'd end up regretting not moving out to Asia. So I quit my job the next day. I put in my 2 weeks notice, and then I relocated out to the Philippines as the director of operations for this creative agency. When we started, we just had a photography and a graphic design department, and it was my job to grow that agency and add on all the services that Amazon sellers would need for their listings. So we did photography, graphic design, copywriting, and video. And we grew that team to more than 30 full-time creatives. At the time, there wasn't really many Amazon agencies that would focus on photography. You'd have to go out to Fiverr, build your own team, or work with photographers, graphic designers that weren't specific to Amazon FBA. So we were probably one of the first conversion focused agencies out there. And so we grew that business for 2 years. Like I said, we grew to more than 30 full-time employees. We helped tons and tons, like I'm talking hundreds of projects over that 2 year period, people launching products, big brands that were working with us. And in 2019, this was during that big aggregator boom where there was a ton of money coming into the space. There was a small aggregator based out of Southeast Asia that acquired the agency. And so after that, I stayed on for a few months and then handed off everything to the new owners. And I knew I wanted to stay in the e-com industry. I could see how fast it was growing. I felt like I was really learning a lot. And what was exciting to me is that even back then, this would have been like 2019, there was still a lot of new things about the platform. You could do really well just from having a good technical understanding of just Amazon specifically. And no one in the world seemed to know about this. And so I wanted to stay in the industry. I approached a company called PickFu, which is a market research tool. It allows you to split test images, product packaging, any kind of creative assets. You can get feedback from real people very quickly. So after selling the agency, I approached the people at PickFu. We had worked with them on a case study in the agency. We were doing main image testing. So this is before Amazon allowed you to split test a main image. We were one of the first agencies that would, create multiple versions of someone's main image so that they could test it to optimize for click-through rate. So I approached PickFu, grew that company over a period of 2 years, trained all of the large aggregators and their creative teams on how to use PickFu. And then after growing that for a period of 2 years, I told them that I'd make sure everyone in the industry knows about PickFu, and I feel like I did that. And then so I approached Seller Systems. So there's a coaching company based out of the United States. For sure, hands down, the best content that you can learn how to sell on Amazon, called Seller Systems. And so I really love making presentations, really like taking complicated information and making it simple. And so I approached them about revamping the educational content for Seller Systems. And at that time, I realized that Brandon Young, the creator of Seller Systems, also owned this software tool called Data Dive. And so I've been working for the past almost year and a half between both of those companies, the educational company, the software Data Dive, and then also we have a conference every year called Camp Ecom. So I've seen the industry from every different side, from still currently sell products, going out to China in October for Canton Fair, looking to hopefully find a couple new products to launch for this year. I've seen it from the service side. I've seen it from the software side. So a little bit of everything.
Wow, it's quite a journey. Yeah, really amazing.
Hope that wasn't too long, but yeah, it's cool because, this industry just didn't exist, 5 years ago. And I remember my dad, it was after one of the Prosper shows, I was speaking on stage and another person speaking on stage. He was like a ex-VP or ex-C-level executive of Wayfair. And he's like, Anthony, I don't understand. How are you speaking at these conferences that these executives from major companies are speaking at? And what I explained to him is everything in this industry is brand new. And so if you come from a traditional background, nothing really applies to Amazon. And so anyone who's been in this industry for a few years now, it's just whoever can come up with the best information and figure this thing out the fastest is ultimately who's going to win. And it's just cool to be a part of something that changes so fast.
Yeah. I remember the time I joined Amazon myself in 2016, and it was like, wow, it's cutting edge technology, and very few people really understand how it works. But everyone sees the potential and like wanted to do it. And but it's definitely changed, right? So what we see today, it's much more mature, it's much more competitive, I would say. And like, what is your observation of the trends? What's going on this used to be a very new place?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna. Is it okay if I share screen just for 1 second? Because I want to show a slide that I think people will find is pretty helpful. So I'm not going to go through like a whole presentation or anything like that today, but I really love showing this example. I made this. Let's see here.
Just take it in consideration. We also run it audio, so it can be clear for people that just listen for us.
Right? Yeah, I got you. Can you see the slide right now?
Not yet.
Okay, 1 second. 1 second. Oh, I got to click here. I got it now. Okay, I think you can see it now, right?
Yes, let me add to the stage. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, like everyone should see.
Okay, so I'll describe the slide for anyone who's joining over audio, but this is really fascinating to me because the older I get in this world, I realize that it is possible to tell the future, right? We can't always predict what's going to happen 100%, but we can make really accurate predictions on where things are going based on where things have been in the past. And so I've always been fascinated with this because when I first started getting into the industry, the landscape of Amazon is very different from where it is today. And things that work, things that we used to teach back then are just not applicable now. I was talking with someone at a conference a few weeks ago, and we were saying, like, if you had the technology, the software, and then you had the knowledge set that you have now, and you were to go back selling on Amazon in the early days, you would be so much better than everyone else. It would be so easy to make money. It's just over time, like all of these gaps between how much people know, how much software helps, it's always changing. And so this slide here, you're asking about the progression of Amazon. It's broken down into I mean, this is cool. Like it's broken down into 4 parts. I really look at it like back in 2016, pre-2016, that's what everyone would call the Wild West, where Amazon is really just trying to fill the platform with any conceivable product. They want to sell absolutely everything. This is where you could almost launch anything. There was low competition and you could do really well very easily. I remember the first conference I went to, a legitimate strategy for launching products was to order 100 sample quantities from Alibaba, and then you would take like out of those 100, see which one performed, and then go and actually try to build brands and listings just based on the 10 or 15 that performed. Like that actually worked back then, launching products with no listings and just seeing what stuck. When we get into the early days, this is like 2016 to 2019, that's when things start getting a lot more serious. You start seeing crackdown in terms of the TOS. You can't do the same review manipulation stuff. This is where advanced strategies are really essential. Like you really had to understand not just one thing, like building out good listings or just PPC. You had to start to be able to do multiple of these things at one time. This is also where you start to see that honeymoon period. So Amazon saying new competitors that come to the platform, it doesn't matter how long you've been selling. If a new competitor can outperform you, they're going to start replacing your ranks. They're going to start outperforming you overall. And then from the early days, when things start getting serious, then it starts to get really serious during this aggregator boom. So this is like 2020, 2022, a lot of private equity money going into the space. You're seeing a lot of talent come in. This is the professionalization of the industry where everything starts to get crazy, crazy complicated and really competitive. Even in small niches, it's very difficult to find any new niche where there's not at least some people already selling that are well-established and sophisticated sellers. And then where we are now, this is my opinion of where we're going. It's like the aggregator boom was all about putting as many people into the industry that were smart, that kind of fixed up the processes. But what we realized, a lot of these aggregators didn't stick around, right? Their teams were too expensive for the growth that they were experiencing. The model of acquiring these businesses and just pumping them with cash clearly wasn't the answer. It was all about growing businesses, but being able to do that in a profitable way. And so I think where we are right now is this software boom where we're seeing a core focus on profitability. And what this is really coming down to is we're seeing more and more highly advanced SaaS tools that are going to allow like individual workers or smaller teams to have a bigger impact. And so the brands that I see now that are doing really well, aside from the massive, massive brands that are just, they've got like, we're talking like hundreds of millions of dollars on Amazon, beautiful branding, packaging. They have off Amazon traffic. It's not just an Amazon brand. Aside from those, the private label brands that I see doing very well are the ones that are like a single owner. They've got a very small team. We're talking like 2 or 3 people to manage multiple millions of dollars in revenue. They're super lean and they're using tools that are allowing their team members to manage entire portfolios a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like how you put the structure of this 4 like eras of the Amazon. I really totally agree with the definition. And I never put it in this way. Awesome. And so what do you think as the main challenges of today to like get to the Amazon market? I'm not talking about like new people that just taking some education, let's do Amazon business. I even mean like for cases that for existing brands that not on Amazon yet, but they want to bring something on the Amazon. Or even we have cases, we have clients with a lot of history of success, but they decide to bring the new product to the market, and it's getting much harder and harder, right? So what do you think the main challenges and obstacles of the way?
I think what's going to happen across all markets, you can see it a lot already in the US, is every product niche, every area of selling on Amazon is just going to get very competitive. So when I started in Data Dive, this would have been like a year and a half ago, I could look at the average search volume percentage for a niche. And this is telling you what out of like all of the keywords that are driving sales for a niche, if there's 200, 300 keywords, what's the percentage that the sellers ranked on page 1 for those keywords? So when I started, you'd see like maybe 1 or 2 sellers that were ranked for 80+% of a master keyword list on page 1. Now you'll go into a niche and you'll see like 5 or 10 people that are almost at 100%, and the organic rankings are all like single digit numbers completely down the row. And so I think the biggest point of competition, the thing that's coming up, is that if you want to be in one of those first like 3 to 5 spaces, you're not going to be able to just do one thing right. In the past, you could win from just having a really good product, or just nailing external traffic, or just having really good images, or just being really good at PPC, right? There's all of these little levers that you used to be able to pull. And if you could just pull one lever hard enough, it didn't matter if your other levers were optimized, you could still do well. Now what it's coming down to is the performance for these top sellers is so close at the top. You're seeing very close click-through rates, very close and high conversion rates, very high and close monthly revenue. They're really having to like pull all of their levers down to the max all at the same time. And so like all of the easy stuff, the little hacks that you think you're going to grow the business in the short term probably aren't that effective. It's all about you're going to work every single day and just slightly adjust these levers. Maybe you're going to find new levers like, oh, we haven't been using external traffic. We haven't been using, influencer marketing. We haven't been launching variations. You're going to like just be dialing in these levers. And then over time, you're going to just increase your performance and you're going to be the most consistent over time. You got to be perfect.
Yeah, I really like this framework of there is no more low-hanging fruits, right? It's getting to be like serious game in most of the
I'd
niches.
say there still are low-hanging fruits. Like this is why I like to show things on this time frame, right? Is because if you think of any niche, right? What are the most competitive niches on Amazon? If we think about like weight loss supplements, garlic press, Bluetooth headphones, power banks. If I go in to look at some of these very competitive categories, this is how you can kind of get a snapshot of where we're going in the future, is because these categories have always been competitive, but they're not as competitive as they are now. It's just a progression of getting here. So if I wanted to go and see like what Amazon would look like today for most products on average, I could have looked and seen what those most competitive categories looked like 2 or 3 years ago, right? If I looked at garlic presses, I would see that there's 15 competitors that all have amazing images. But if I would go to a less competitive niche 2-3 years ago, you might see 1 or 2 sellers with images to that level of quality. And so like you can get an idea of where we're going in the future. Just look at Anchor, right? One of the best sellers on Amazon. Go look at the images that they have on their product. What I think is like in 2-3 years, you're going to have to look to that level, especially now with AI, it can help you create better designs. You're going to have to look to that level to just be baseline. And so the good news is if you look at your niche and you compare that to like a Garcinia Cambogia, like a weight loss supplement, or a garlic press, or whatever the highly competitive product is, and you look at your niche and the image galleries in your niche don't match what those look like, if the SEO optimization doesn't match that, if PPC doesn't match that, then you still have some time, right? So there's like a narrow window of time, like just what we do at Data Dive with like SEO optimization. Amazon at their conference this past week, they were showing, it's not live yet, but they were showing a tool that just from a single keyword, it'll build you an entire listing from scratch. And it's like perfect. It's going to fix keyword indexing. So there's a small amount of time before Amazon releases that and everyone has it. And SEO is no longer going to be one of those levers that you can pull. Everyone's lever is going to be pulled to the max. So now images, PPC, sourcing, price, everything's going to be more important.
Yeah, I see. Interesting. So like what you're saying is you can try to learn from the most competitive niches today, so you can win in the future.
Think about this too, right? Everyone's probably seen at this point the generative image creators. We've got Dolly, we've got Midjourney. Adobe has their own suite of tools, Firefly, that you can use. Right now, if I would go to Amazon, if I would go to Midjourney and say, hey, I'm selling a garlic press, I need you to make me a full image gallery. Or I'm selling a power bank, I need to make my images. It won't work yet. It'll get you close. If you work with a designer, you can definitely make something that's usable. But this technology is going to get better and better. Eventually, you're going to be able to go to one of those programs. And I can already compare what our agency used to do back in the day to what those programs do now. And it's pretty close. But like in another year, 2 years, you're going to be able to far exceed what any agency does with a click of a button. And so what you have to think about is like, we're just on a progression to get there, to everyone having great images. So the people that are like, you know what, I'm going to go and get crazy good images now, and I'm going to put them on my listing. they're gonna experience some gains. But once everyone gets there, well, now you can't compete on images anymore. You just have to nail external traffic. You have to nail influencer marketing. You have to have an innovative new invention of a product, you know? And so it's just going to get more competitive. The people who are going to win are the people who are like, we're going to do everything we can now before this whole thing is just a click of a button. And we're like a few years from that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally believe that at some point, all the e-commerce and Amazon as well, we will get personal images. So like I will see the garlic press that will appeal to me, and you will see it's in different versions for the same product. But yeah, probably.
I think where we're going in the future is it's going to be so dialed in on these niches that especially in the US, I think there's going to be like for every product page on Amazon, if you type in a keyword, there's going to be like 5 to 10 brands that are all like very specific. They're going to like link to a political affiliation or environmental or social causes. And they're all going to be selling the same thing, but with just slightly different branding. And it's going to look perfect. It's going to be great products. And the only people that are going to be successful in launching new products are going to be like large companies that they're like so dialed in on their launches. Their brands are perfect. Like that's where I think we're going.
Yeah. Yeah. I also have some ideas that I even have a bet with my co-founder that pretty soon we will get rid of this Amazon search results as we see it in like Google and Amazon. So we'll get it more like you put the query and you get more or less what you described. Like this is a brand, this is a values, this is what will fit you, and like a different experience.
Yeah, I mean, like eventually, right? It's just everyone's selling the same thing, right? Like people can figure out how to source a garlic press at a low price. So it's like you're either gonna maintain prices and you're gonna stand out on your brand, or it's just gonna be a price war to the bottom. Like this is what marketplace selling is, and I think it's exciting that for the people that came early, we got to see like how it's grown, and there was maybe more opportunity back then. But for anyone who is getting into it for the first time, like you can still win. It's still not that complicated. It does take a lot of time to learn. There's just a lot of moving pieces. Like there are people that still launch products today that are doing well. It's just, you got to be, it's like the big leagues now.
And what do you guys see? Because you probably run a lot of accounts and you see a lot of data from the profitability perspective. Because what we see more or less is it's getting harder and harder to get margin on Amazon if you're not strong brand, for example. So if your brand is strong enough, it's still consistent. But for most of our private label clients, the margin is getting less and less sexy.
I mean, margin compression is a real thing. The only way to protect it is you got to have such high performing metrics that you're kind of playing your own game on Amazon's platform, right? So you got to think, if you're trying, like, have you ever sold retail Walmart, anything like that? Like think about it like this. If you go in and sell in Walmart, you're going to sign contracts where your margin is going to be garbage, but you're going in there because of volume. And so in the beginning, right, things are going to be a lot more profitable because there's fewer sellers, there's a lot less competition. But now this is going to turn into a situation where like Amazon already has 15 sellers that they know, like they're looking at the conversion rate for this niche, for this garlic press, and they're like, we're converting on average 35% for this garlic press. And if this top seller would suddenly go away, there's 15 other people that are all converting at 35%. Amazon just cares about when people come to the platform, are they getting clicks? Are they getting conversions? Are they getting sales? And when they get the product, are they generally happy with it? Right? Yeah. Is it generally a good experience? Or if people are mad, then that's not going to be good. But as long as that's happening, there's so many people, I think you're going to start to see, we had potentially a good period of time where, maybe margins were a little bit higher, but I think it's going to start to match more and more what retail looks like. As like, again, we're just on a progression. Margins are here. You think it's going to get better? The only way it's going to get better is if people drop out, they stop selling. Probably not going to happen. And the only way that you can make your own margins better is increasing your performance, right? You got to figure out how to optimize for your ACoS. You got to drive more external traffic, and you got to maintain organic ranks. But like, I mean, I was having a call with someone last week, and they were telling me like they're getting into Q4, they're in home goods, which is a competitive category. All of their competitors are like going crazy on their PPC spend, trying to get their organic ranks as high as possible before going into Q4. At this PPC spend, that seller is not profitable. But if he turns off his PPC and he's going to lose money, then his organic ranks are going to drop. So that's the reality that we're in. Like there's nothing that he can do about that aside from pay the PPC to maintain organic ranks and hope that the margins are going to be good. Figure out a way to source the product cheaper, not likely, or maximize performance somehow in other ways through images or, whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's very familiar story. We see it a lot. Okay, so our time is running. Can you give us some of the latest features of Data Dive that you're super proud, something new that you released that can be interesting and helpful?
Absolutely. So Data Dive is an all-in-one software solution for sellers. What we say is that it's just going to help you do everything you need to do for Amazon, but faster. It's all about speeding up the workflow. So if you think about winning on Amazon, I was talking about all these little levers. Data Dive, it's different from Helium 10. It's different from Jungle Scout. Like we built it from the ground up, and it's supposed to help you identify all of these levers and take all these little actions on your listings that you can do the same thing over and over again with more consistency, but have a lot bigger impact. So if you want to book a demo, if you want to see the tool, just I can drop a link to my Calendly here and check it out. Like there's a reason that it's growing so fast. I would recommend just spending the time to learn it because it is complicated, but I'm telling you, the people who figure this out now are going to be the people that they kind of squeeze this last little bit out, because one day our goal is, we're going to make this all click of a button one day. Eventually it's going to be there. Maximize while you can. I think we've probably got a year, 2 years until that happens.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. It was very helpful. I really like the structure, how you put the history, how you put this everything. So I believe it was very helpful for all of our listeners as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anthony.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. See you later.